Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Chongqing for another episode of Jerry's Take on China, and of course I'm Jerry. Hardly anyone knows of the city Chongqing outside of China. I'd certainly never heard of it until I came to China, and a student here during my first few weeks told me it was the largest city in the world with over 30 million people. I didn't believe that, so I left the class, did some research, and found out technically he was right. Chongqing is a municipality which in terms of governance is a city directly governed under the central government, the same as Beijing, Shanghai and Tianjin. What's different about Chongqing is that it's an inland city which until the Second World War was a river port and a central Chinese trading hub. It's also about the same size as Austria. In 1894, the first Western literature that I can find about the place was written by an Australian doctor with a zest for adventure. He travelled the entire length of the river from Shanghai against the current and wrote a book about it called G.E. Morrison's An Australian in China. It was a bestseller at the time, but that wasn't the real adventure. He then walked from Chongqing to what we used to call Rangoon or Yangon, over 3,000 miles or 4,600 kilometers, and that took him only 100 days and cost a total of £30, and that including the hiring of several coolies, as he called them, to carry his luggage, writing equipment, which included a seat and a desk. Chongqing is known as one of China's cauldrons, and it usually is. A friend of mine said to me the other day, no one in 5,000 years of history has ever said these words: I'm going to Chongqing to escape the summer heat. But for the few days while we've been here, Guangzhou, where we came from, is boiling in the summer sun, and Chongqing has been a relatively cool 32°C. Now the mercury is back to normal and the temperature is hovering just under the 40°C mark. That's 104 for people who still use the F. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I know of Chongqing, which isn't much, but it's really an interesting city with a very interesting history. It became the temporary capital of China during the Second World War and a massive manufacturing hub. The theory apparently was that the Japanese air attacks couldn't reach this far, but that was soon found to be wrong, and now the city is scattered with underground air raid shelters, some of which have been turned into very interesting tourist venues. The people are known for their indomitable spirit. Communists were not welcome here at that time. The KMT made sure of that by capturing as many of them as they could. They imprisoned them, tortured some of them, and eventually executed, or in the case of one horrific atrocity, murdered almost 200 prisoners in one evening in the Hongyang prison. That was before burning the place down and fleeing the country in 1949, the final days of their rule. That place has now been turned into a museum, and it is quite moving. On a happier note, the city is now flourishing. There are 32 million people in this region, and almost 9 million live in what's called downtown, the city centre. We've spent a few days here and enjoyed it very much, but here's a couple of words of warning for travellers. If you don't like spicy food, Chongqing is not for you. The most likely restaurant that you're going to find, the only place a local will recommend or invite you to, will always be a Chongqing hotpot restaurant. You can give it a try, but please have some fire extinguishers nearby. If you don't like beer, there are plenty of soft drinks, but it's easy to get through a few bottles of good local Chongqing beer at a hotpot restaurant. If you're disabled or faint of heart, not very fit, then Chongqing is probably not for you either. It's really hilly and they have a lot of steps. And when I say a lot of steps, I really mean a lot. When I say it's really hilly, I mean that too. We walked off one street, up about 12 steps, across a plaza, and found ourselves entering a building 100 meters away on the 22nd floor. And that's part one of my travelogue of Chongqing. We're going to be here for a couple of weeks, but we're going to be busy on a course, so not traveling around so much. I do have a lot to talk about, and I've taken a lot of pictures and videos, so if you're interested and would like to know more, please leave a comment and I'll try to answer it either by reply or in the next video. And in a couple of weeks' time, when we leave Chongqing, we're going to be leaving it by river and doing a cruise to get to another city before flying home. So that might be interesting to some people too. And on that note, I'll say a good night to you because it's getting very late. You can hear cicadas in the background interrupting me, and I hope you've enjoyed this very short, very brief introduction to Chongqing, and there will be more. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye for now.